Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Comstock from the city of Scotts Valley is supposed to be joining us today, so we were waiting a couple of minutes to see if we had him arrive, but we're not sure of his whereabouts, so we're going to go ahead and start without him. This is the January 14th meeting of the Library Facility Financing Authority Joint Powers Authority Board. And can I have a roll call?
Director Bernal.
Here.
Director Comstock. Director Goldstein.
Present.
Director Moriello.
Present. And we have an agenda that's before us with several items on it. Does the agenda look acceptable to the members?
Yes.
Okay, seeing no changes to the agenda, then the next item will be oral communications. This is the time that anyone can address us on any matter that is within our jurisdiction but not on today's agenda for a period of time up to 3 minutes. So is there anyone here liking to make an oral communication?
I wanted to report to you on the committee for the revenue measure.
Thank you. Thank you.
And if you could introduce yourself, so we'll get you on the record.
Cynthia Matthews, Mayor of Santa Cruz and former member of the JPA, and currently one of the organizers of the committee to pass the revenue measure. So I wanted to report to you on the progress of that. We have had our first meeting, and a very strong variety and commitment of interest. We are already having subcommittees meeting in the different communities to pull together their own volunteer efforts, fundraising, endorsements, and so we are off to a very strong start. I do have a support form which I'm going to distribute to you. Each of you can contribute as private citizens, and I hope you will do that quickly and generously. And I will distribute the remaining to you. Seriously, I mean, this is a campaign. We are very grateful. We've started off with a $15,000 contribution from the Friends from the previous fiscal year, so we're off to a very good start. And so I think that's it. I would request that you contact me personally on your own personal time, and I'm happy to provide you information for more of this. We are eager to get going. I'm going to put on the Santa Cruz City Council agenda support for this measure. I asked the other jurisdictions to do that quickly. You know, we are talking really about a May election, not a June election. You all know that. And so we have just a few months to get this thing cranking and passed. So early support is very important. We are already going out to groups and getting endorsements as well as from individuals. So we're on it. Thank you. I would also say, I know further in your agenda is the choosing of ballot signers, and so we would like to have some input into that process.
Okay, so we'll talk about that shortly.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for that report, Madam Mayor, and again, thank you for all your work. I know your efforts are very much appreciated by all of us, so thank you so much for that. Are there other oral communications? Again, matters within our jurisdiction. Yes, Mr. Holloway.
Thank you.
Please come up to the front so that we can memorialize you on film for all time.
I'm Bruce Holloway from Boulder Creek, and I noticed that item number 2, it says approve agenda of December 17th. So I'm just recommending in the future, if you just leave the date off, then it won't be a source of error in the future. But what I really wanted to talk about is this bold-faced sentence at the top that says, the board reserves the right to take action on any item included on this agenda. I know a little bit about why this sentence was added, and I don't think that it solved the particular problem. I could tell you about that sometime. The board can't reserve a right that you don't already have. And as a matter of fact, you cannot take action on oral communications. Don't think you can take action on written communication. So I'm a mathematician. When someone makes a general statement, all you have to do is have one counterexample, and that just proves what it says. So this sentence neither adds nor takes away from what the authority that this board has, so I recommend that you delete it. And I think this is one of the reasons why the board should not hire ABC Law for a lawyer, because this is an example of their work, and I think it's meaningless and confusing. You should get rid of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holloway. Are there other oral communications, people wishing to address us on matters that are within our jurisdiction? And again, it's not our policy to take actions on oral communications, but suffice to say, we will be updating the policies and procedures of this JPA as we go along, and we have the bylaws on the agenda today, and all of the other details will come in time, so thank you for that input. Okay, so we'll move along to the Executive Director's report. The first item is an update on the CFD formation, and is Nicole or Janice going to give that?
So I'm filling in for Marcus today, who couldn't be here. So I will give just a brief report and talk about the timeline that's on page 2 of the agenda packet. So following the last meeting, the map was recorded. We have our copy now for the LFFA. We should be receiving the notices to publish those in the papers for the public hearing that's going to take place on February 4th. Shortly, the MBS is working on the Community Facility District Tax Report that needs to be prepared, and then our financial consultant and Jones Hall are working on the resolutions for the public hearing on February 4th. One thing I wanted to point out on the timeline, we have the resolution calling the election and consolidation on February 4th, depending on how the polling goes at the end of the month. We may want to actually adopt the resolution at the March meeting, which would still meet the election deadline, because that resolution may need to be refined based on how the polling comes back. So there could be an adjustment to this timeline in the future.
Okay, thank you so much, Nicole, and thank you for filling in for Marcus. Questions from the board?
Just so I'm clear, Nicole, so actually the March date could be the actual date to place that on the, not February?
We will consider the resolution calling the election, but depending on how the polling comes back, and there may need to be some tweaking to the resolution. We should have an update for you in February. We may have the actual resolution, but the final adoption may occur on March 3rd.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions from the board on this item? Any questions from the audience on the staff report regarding the CFD formation? Any comments? Seeing none, we'll move to the schedule of key dates, which we kind of covered both of those at the same time. Okay, so any action on the director's report needed, Nicole?
Not at this time.
Informational. Okay, so then we'll move to item 5, which is the consent agenda item. That is to approve the minutes of December 17th. If the minutes are acceptable, may I have a motion to approve them?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments by members of the board on the minutes? Any comments by the audience on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. The minutes carry unanimously. Okay, the next thing are the staff reports. Item 6A is an election of the officers of the board chair and vice chair. It's on page 9 of our packet. And I think all of you will remember that we established a rotation schedule for the chair. And in 2016, the city of Capitola would become the chair, and the city of Scotts Valley would become, the city of Santa Cruz would become the vice chair. And then they would move up the following year, with Scotts Valley following behind, and then the county would rotate back in as vice chair in 2018, and that rotation schedule would continue into the future. So that is the schedule that we adopted. Are there any comments on the staff report? Okay, so seeing none, the appropriate motion to consider would be to accept the rotation of officers for the city of Capitola as chair and the city of Santa Cruz as vice chair.
So moved.
And we have a motion from Martine, and a second from the City of Capitola from Jamie. Are there members of the audience who'd like to comment on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously.
All right.
All right, the ceremonial passing of the Democratic position of chair. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan, and thank you for all your great work helping guide us this first year. I'd forgotten that this was in the cards. All right, so the next item on our agenda this morning is item 6B, which is the appointment of an interim executive director to conduct the business of the authority. Do we have a staff report, Nicole?
Yes, so when the first meeting of the LFFA, it was decided that since the library director was going to be retiring, that Marcus Pimentel, the finance director of the city of Santa Cruz, would serve as interim executive director until a new library director was hired. He's performed that role. He was selected in part because of his close relationship with MBS and working on the tax modeling analysis. At this point, he feels it's appropriate to transition to someone else to carry this through until we have our new library director. And we've spoken with Rich Hill, former city manager of the city of Capitola, to serve as the interim executive director until we have our new library director. So we're planning to hire him through the library in an extra help position to serve in this role, and he will be working for a minimal number of hours every week. We anticipate, approximately 5. There might be some initial work that he needs to get up to speed on, so there might be some additional hours initially, but we don't anticipate his time to be all that great. And he'll be coordinating with all of our consultants who are going to be doing the bulk of the legwork in terms of the resolutions that need to be prepared.
All right. Are there any questions on the staff report? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for discussion.
Well, I think Rich would be a great addition to the team. He's very knowledgeable in these areas, and he's very detail oriented. And I know Marcus was feeling a lot of concern that he wasn't able to devote enough time and attention to all of his myriad of duties with the city. So I think this will give him some needed relief, and we're still going to have him around. So I think it sounds like a good solution.
So Nicole, would this mean a contract that would come back to the board, or is it within budgeting and contract authority for the law? Okay.
Right.
So this would be the
It'd be a staff position.
It will be a temporary position.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. With that, I'm looking for a motion.
So the item, let's see what the recommendation is on page 10.
The recommendation would be to appoint Rich Hill as our new interim executive director.
Okay, so I would recommend that we approve the appointment of Rich Hill as our new executive director, and request that the library director take the necessary administrative actions in support of that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, great.
We're going to have Rich and Chuck back.
Oh, my goodness gracious. I didn't quite think of it that way. Can I take it back?
Just crossed my mind. All right. So that takes us to the next item on the agenda, which is to consider signers for ballot arguments. Is there a staff report on this, Nicole?
So we have, in anticipation of your board passing a resolution to call an election, there's an item on here to consider ballot signers for the ballot measure. We've spoken with the elections department about this, just to confirm the process that can be taken to identify and place ballot arguments on the ballot. The LFFA board, as the governing board, has the first priority for placing ballot arguments with the measure. However, since there is a campaign committee being formed, they would have the second priority, and it would be our recommendation that you would allow them to proceed forth with identifying ballot signers. They have the ability to have at least 5 people or 5 signers on the ballot arguments. And so they could have some diversity in terms of who they could bring into signing those arguments. You could consider this yourselves and form an ad hoc committee, but I'm not sure that's necessary at this time.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Just one. So if the committee were to do it, I know we're working on an educational campaign with Terrace and Barnes, and would they be participating in the selection of the appropriate ballot signers? Because again, ballot signers can be any number of people, and sometimes it's really helpful to choose based on things that we get from the poll and to choose based on, you know, other considerations that they might be able to help us with.
Yes.
So they would be working together on that. Terrific.
I had a question, Nicole. So just so I'm clear on it, the deadline to identify the signers is February 4th. Does that get pushed out to March if we don't place the item on the agenda then, on the ballot then, or is...
So that was an internal deadline that we met, that
Okay.
we placed on ourselves just to kind of keep things moving. So the deadline that we have to meet to put ballot arguments on the ballot is the Elections Department deadline, which is the end of March. So the last day to submit primary ballot arguments is March 23rd, and the last day to submit rebuttal arguments is March 28th. So those are the deadlines that have to be met at the Elections Department. Our other deadlines were just internal deadlines that to just make sure we kept this moving.
Okay. Thanks for clearing that up. Are there any public comment on this? Yes.
Thank you. I support your direction of appointing a subcommittee or designating a group to consider who would be the best signers, certainly working with the poll results we have and looking for diversity, strong names, different constituencies, etc. We can have 5 for the original argument, 5 for the rebuttal, so we can get 10 good names, and I think designating a group to get going on that sooner rather than later is a good idea, because, you know, it takes a while to contact people and etc. Make sure they're comfortable with the language. And so don't look at the deadline. set a process in motion and we can get going on it. That would be my suggestion.
Do you feel the committee needs the input of this body, or do you?
Love to have it, and I think the thing to do would probably to designate who you want to charge with those recommendations and provide any suggestions to that committee. And I think we've all been through this before. You throw a whole lot of names up against the wall and see which ones give you the best package for all those factors. So yeah, recommendation from all those that have an interest would be important, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there other public comments? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment period and bring it back to the board for comments and discussion. Is there any discussion on this item?
Well, I think it's great that the committee is willing to take on the responsibility, because I think it's a daunting task to choose those 10 names from among so many. So I appreciate their willingness to do it. And if they're looking for our input, I think maybe if we could give them a member to work with as their primary contact point, you know, that would be ideal. I don't know who would be the best person to do that. I'm sure any one of us would be willing, but
Yeah, that seems like the right way to go. I think that this group that we have that's supporting the measure is obviously very politically savvy and understands the landscape here as well as anybody, but I think someone from this board would make a lot of sense to
well,
do
given
that.
that you're chair, do you think? I'm just asking. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Of course.
I'm sure either one of us would be
Yeah,
happy.
I would be happy to do it. Yeah.
That would be great.
And then
Okay,
we'll be
so-
a conduit.
Yeah, you'll be on our conduit, and again, we'll make sure Chuck
Right.
and the rest of us send any names your way.
So we're clear on the expectation. I'll be working with Cynthia and the rest of the group, and what we'll be seeing is as the names come back in our next meeting with recommended authorizers to sign.
Right, and if there are recommendations of people that you would like for us to contact and tell more about just how the library JPA is operating and, just kind of educational information, we'd be happy, I'm sure all of the members would be happy to do that.
Yes, and it's my understanding that it's important for you to designate who has the authority. So, because you're the first in line.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
Right. So that'd be our
when you
action.
designate someone specifically, they occupy that space. So it's not just open to the first
Yeah.
comer. Yeah.
Right.
So what we will do is at the next meeting, that we'll have a list and the specific names we will be designating at that time.
Okay.
So the
Makes sense?
designation will happen.
Well, I think what we could do for today is that we would I would make a motion that we would designate Jamie as the chair of this group, as our designated representative for determining the appropriate signers for the argument, working with the committee that is being established to support the measure, and our consultants, and returning to the board as may be needed for any further input that we may provide.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
I don't know if any public had comment on that motion, but,
I already closed the vote.
okay.
Okay, so that gets us to written communication. Have we received any written communication during this period?
We do not have any.
Okay. Takes us to our board meeting calendar for 2016. So, is there a staff report? I don't see a staff report. Is there any presentation?
We didn't put an updated meeting schedule in here. Our next meeting is scheduled on February 4th.
Okay.
And at the downtown branch, we'll be conducting the public hearing at that meeting, which will be advertised soon.
Okay. Do we need to look beyond that into 2016 at this time, or can we hold on that until a future meeting date?
Well, we have the schedule listed at the library board meetings, which will take place subsequent to this. Your board will be addressing the meeting scheduled in as well, and there will be a discussion about rotating the meetings to different branches.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to, as the LFFA board, want to discuss that now. But we could in the future. We have to hold a public hearing here because it will be noticed. But after the February meeting, we could start to rotate to different branches. And there are meeting rooms in, I think I listed 4 or 5 other branches, Aptos, downtown, Scotts Valley, and Boulder Creek all have meeting rooms, I believe, right, Janice?
That's correct.
So we could start to rotate if it was your board's desire.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. Are there any questions, comments?
I have a comment. So I just, as it relates to this body, I think it would be great if this body would meet either immediately before or immediately after the JPA so that we can kind of consolidate the 2 meetings in an efficient way. And I think that the calendar should be governed by the work of the JPA, the operational JPA, because they're going to probably have most of the day-to-day affairs that need to be addressed. And in terms of the locations, I would say that we should agree that the locations are whatever we decide to do on the other end, because, again, I don't know that it would really matter if it was here or in Aptos for this group, but it would be helpful operationally to be able to get around, I think, so. So that's just a comment. So for now, I'm happy to leave the meeting schedule based on what you have, and then we can see what happens with the next meeting.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there any public comment on the schedule? All right. So for now, we're just going to leave that item, and then we'll be coming back to it, obviously, as the other board. So with that, that takes us to item 9, which is adjournment, and the meeting is concluded.
Right on time.
Thank you very much.
So now you got to hold the meeting to order. Oh, no.